Hello, my name is Rose Riley, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Washtenaw County. Welcome to our online candidate forum for the November 5th general election. The League is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that promotes voter education and participation, and we host candidate forums to help voters make informed choices. Now, let's hear from the candidates.
My name is Lynn Komansky, and I will moderate the forum tonight. It's my honor to introduce 3 of the 6 nonpartisan candidates running in the November general election for the Ann Arbor Public Schools Board of Education. We have Megan Knaus, Eric Sturgis, and Leslie Wilkins. The remaining 3 candidates will participate in a separate identical forum, thereby giving all candidates adequate time to respond to questions. Thank you, candidates, for agreeing to participate in this forum. We are now ready for your opening statement, and I will start with Ms. Knaus.
Hi, my name is Megan Knaus. Thank you very much for having us here and giving us the opportunity to speak this evening. I am a current Ann Arbor Public School parent with a kiddo in elementary and in middle school right now. I have served in the schools as a PTO chair, as our PTO council rep, and a volunteer as a room parent, various events for our community events. And I've also been a Girl Scout leader that's led 2 troops through their elementary school years at my daughter's elementary school. I'm proud to say that I've been endorsed by the AAEA, which is our teachers union, as well as an organized group of past board trustees called Better Boards, Better Schools, because they represent 2 major stakeholders in our education system. And I think it's great that they've given me a vote of confidence in fulfilling a role on the board.
Thank you, Ms. Knaus. Now, Mr. Sturgis, may we have your opening statement?
Yes, thank you for having us, and thank you, Megan and Leslie, for being here. My name is Eric Sturgis. I'm an Ann Arbor Public School grad, Northside Elementary, Clegg Middle School, and a proud Huron River rat. I have my master's degree from Eastern Michigan University in sports administration. I have been involved in the schools since I was 16 years old when we started with the campaign to build the new high school, which I was very supportive of. And that new high school skyline, I have worked at as a tennis coach. I also have been a substitute teacher and sub-parapro in the district, and feel that my experience coaching, teaching, as well as being an Ann Arbor Public Schools grad gives me some great knowledge of what works well in the district, what doesn't, and I look forward to this forum, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. And finally, may we have your opening statement, Ms. Wilkins?
I am Leslie Wilkins. I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm a qualified, calm, compassionate, and thoughtful long-term Ann Arbor Public Schools parent. My kids went through Carpenter and then Scarlett and then Huron High School. Serving on as a trustee has been on my heart for a long time. I volunteered on my kids' elementary school and middle school PTOs for 7 years, serving as vice president of the middle school board for 3 years. Most recently, I've served on the PTO Council and their equity committee, and I loved all that work, advocating for students and teachers at Title I schools specifically. And now I want to use my business sense, analytical skills, team player attitude, and life experiences to have a positive impact district-wide. I want to ensure that the district prioritizes success and happiness for all students, not just the white, straight, neurotypical, upper middle class kids who are the easiest to serve. I'm excited to do the hard work necessary to right-size the district's budget, prioritize our educators' needs, and restore trust in our board and administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkins. Thank you, candidates, again. And now to the questions. We will start with Mr. Sturgis for the first question. And the first question is on public trust. What steps would you take with your fellow trustees to build back trust in the board's work following the recent $14 million budget deficit that caused teachers and staff to be laid off?
Well, thank you for this question. I think it's really important. Number one, we have to be transparent. We have to inform the public of decisions that we're making and of what's going on in the school buildings. And I think that that has not been done. But I also think that we, as a group of people, need to work together. We don't have to like each other necessarily, but we have to work together as a team. And, you know, our goal should be what's best for the students, what's best for the teachers, and what's best for the district. And as a coach, I've had to, you know, do this where you put different players in different positions in different places, and there's hard feelings. You have to leave your personal feelings at the door when you come to the meeting, and you have to focus on what's best. And, you know, listening to others is really important, and taking suggestions, and not just, you know, pushing your agenda, but also looking at where we can compromise on things, where we can work together. And so I think this is a huge issue. I've heard it from a lot of people. But what I would like to see is, you know, the board members develop a better relationship, whether outside, you know, just maybe having coffee together, and not even talking about board stuff, but just getting to know each other. And, you know, Megan and I have done that. I've done that with Leslie, and I think that's important because you want to be able to work well with your fellow comrades. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. Same question, Ms. Wilkins.
Yes, we definitely have some work to do to reestablish trust with our community. And I think transparency will be a big part of that. That's going to take some hard work. There are some hard decisions that need to be made. And I think showing our work as board members, so not just showing up with decisions that seem to have already been discussed and decided on, but actually showing how we got to those decisions and all the factors that went into those decisions. So our communities can know, oh, they did ask about us. Our different groups can know that we did ask about how this would affect special needs students or how this would affect our Title I schools. So we're showing our work and showing that we did take all of these things into consideration when we're making those decisions. I think that'll go a long way toward reestablishing that trust. As far as working together with members of the board, we should all be coming at this from a position of mutual respect for one another. So we can all work together to collaborate to get we all have the same goal in mind, is to make it so that our students can thrive. And if we keep that main goal at the top of mind and work together, like I said, from a sense of mutual trust, mutual respect, and do it with honesty, then I think that'll go far.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkins. And same question, Ms. Knaus.
So how do we build trust back within our district? It's going to take a lot of communication and collaboration between all of the stakeholders. And again, keeping that, you know, big picture goal in mind. We'll want to work with our teachers, with our administrators, and with our families to, first of all, set forth a strategic plan for the future of our for the future of our school district, as well as the everyday decisions that the administration is bringing to us in the public facing board meetings, as well as the subcommittee meetings, sharing out our findings with each other as board members, respecting the opinions if they are different, um, letting the community know if some hard decisions are going to be made, and being upfront about those tough conversations that we're going to have, and be able to listen to the community feedback about those, and just letting our letting the community see a dynamic of a board that is functional and is working well, to get the job done and staying on task. I think will put a lot of faith back and trust within the board at large.
Thank you, Ms. Knaus. We're going to move on to question number 2, and I'll be starting with Ms. Wilkins for this one. This is on student enrollment. The district's 2023 student enrollment report shows that the number of students in Ann Arbor Public Schools has declined in each of the last 5 years. In each of those years, significantly more students transferred out of Ann Arbor Public Schools to private schools than transferred in from private schools. Does this pattern indicate a need for changes in Ann Arbor Public Schools? And Ms. Wilkins, to you first.
Okay, there's a lot in there. This is an important question. Does it ask for a change in the schools? I don't know if it asks for a change in the schools so much as a change in how we're operating the schools. So I think we've got a lot of fantastic programs, and that's how we have increased our enrollment in previous years when other school districts were not increasing. Before COVID, our enrollment was increasing because of our International Baccalaureate programs, because of our fantastic music programs, things like that, that Ann Arbor schools can offer students that no other schools can. So I don't think those programs should change, but the way we're running some of the systems in the schools that needs to be improved. So again, back to our special education families, I know that those are some of the families that have transferred out because they're not getting well served in Ann Arbor schools. So we need to pay more attention and figure out how to serve those kids more. There are families of color that have transferred out because they were not served well by our district. There were instances of systemic racism that affected them enough to leave our schools, and that's not good enough. So the way we're handling our schools needs to change, but the schools themselves are fantastic.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilkins. To you, Ms. Knaus.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Whether it's a specific, group of students that we're trying to get back, I would agree that some of the changes that have happened over the past 5 years are why we lost quite a few. As well as just anecdotally, I know that there were some school of choice kids that ended up going to their own home schools, where they might have been outside of the district before because they met so many new friends in their neighborhoods, and that became their community. They wanted to go to school there, which is great. I will also say that losing our aftercare and before care programs that we had been known for also caused quite a few parents to leave and find other options with schools that were offering those services to help our families who are not able to be there right as the bell rings and are not able to find another option within Ann Arbor to get that their kid can get to. As of now, we still don't have all of the elementary schools serviced with aftercare programs, and but the district is working on it. And I look forward to seeing the numbers that we should after this year's enrollment. Count day is coming up, but I know that preliminary numbers the board is asking for now, so we can see if any of the changes that we've addressed already, like our summer school programs, changes in our special education department that we've made are bringing students and families back to Ann Arbor Public Schools.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Knaus. And Mr. Sturgis, same question.
Yes, I think Leslie and Megan both said a lot of very important things, and I agree with everything they've said. One thing I would add that I think has hurt enrollment was COVID and the online learning. I think there were people who left the district because they did not want online learning. They wanted in-person learning. I think there's been a lot of issues in special education, lack of support, when it comes to parapros, when it comes to teachers' aides. And I think that has caused people to leave. I think, as Leslie mentioned, there are a lot of Black families that have left the district for different reasons. But I think one of the overarching reasons is the systemic racism that exist in any school district. But we're not seeing the achievement gap narrowing. We are getting better on equity. There's an equity committee now, but again, I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I, as well as Megan said, would like to see the numbers this year, and we're starting to bring back the aftercares, which is good. But like this year, we lost some of the foreign language in the elementary schools, and I know that was a big thing for certain families. There were a lot of cuts to music, and that is big for certain families. So I think going forward, we need to do our best to service those underrepresented groups in the district.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. We're going to move on to question number 3. And this question is about fiscal expertise, and it will go to Ms. Knaus first. The district has a $300 million annual operating budget and a $90 million annual capital budget. What experience or education prepares you to oversee public finances of this magnitude?
That's a great question. So my previous background, or my professional background, is in retail and product management, and sales, forecasts and plans, and hitting those expectations and goals, and reporting up and monitoring your budget on a quarterly basis with the goals that you've been tasked to achieve, or said that you would achieve from the first place. The district is huge. There are so many different departments, but we do know that teachers and our staff make up about 80% of that general fund. So it's really important that we are monitoring our teacher population and the promises that we've made to them in terms of their salaries. It's important for any other programs that we have that could be coming out of the general fund as well, that we're monitoring those and really watching the funds that are given to us on an annual basis from the state or at the federal level. Those federal grants, I believe, are only reviewed once a year and audited once a year, but we should really, and I'm sure the board will, even the current board right now, is looking at that budget on a much more regular basis and staying on top of that. It is our responsibility to not just look at what's presented, but to also dive deep and make sure that we are looking and forecasting out, what could be going away. For instance, the special education millage that is coming up, if we don't pass that in Washtenaw County this November, then that money for those services will be taken out of the general fund, and we don't want that to happen.
Thank you, Ms. Knaus. To Mr. Sturgis next, same question.
Yeah, and this is a great question. I have experience working with budgets. Number one, I was a summer club tennis director where I was responsible for collecting payments for all of the participants and putting together a budget, hiring staff. So, I would say that's on a much less scale than the budget that Ann Arbor Public Schools faces. I've also, as a college tennis coach, had budgets and had to, monitor my budget throughout the year. And I think that that's something that's really important, is monitoring the budget throughout the year, forecasting for the future, but then also checking that. And, if you're forecasting for a certain enrollment, we need to check that enrollment is going to exist. I also would say, that I think it's very important for us to make sure that teachers are supported, because a lot of teachers have been promised stuff and that has not happened. And I think we as a board need to hold to our word as in regards to supporting teachers. But I think overall with the budget, I think my experience in handling others will help me, and I'm always willing to learn and ask questions, and I think that will serve us well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. And Ms. Wilkins, same question.
Can you repeat just the end of the actual question part of this,
course.
please?
Yes. The district has a $300 million annual operating budget and $90 million annual capital budget. What experience or education prepares you to oversee public finances of this magnitude?
Thank you. Well, I have bachelor's degrees in music and psychology from U of M. I do have an MBA. I've been a marketing and sales executive at the same company for 16 years. So my MBA was more focused on marketing than budgets, although there was certainly all of the budgeting and corporate and accounting and statistics and all that stuff to go with it. But my before the current job that I have, I was actually working at Standard & Poor's in New York on Wall Street as a financial analyst and on the rating side of things. So my job involved looking at a certain situation. It was municipal rating, so it was small cities and towns and things like that, looking at their financial situation and seeing what kind of rating they should get based on their fiscal health. And I didn't get the chance to do that job for very long before I moved back to Michigan. But I did get a lot of practice in asking hard questions. My colleagues were probably annoyed with me for all of the questions that I asked because I was learning the position. So, they'd come up with these numbers and I'd say, okay, well, what does that actually mean? Or what is that going to mean 2 years from now? Or what's that going to mean for this part of the budget? And if you add this part, what's it going to mean over here? So I don't know if you'd call it an expertise, but my practice is to ask those hard questions and try to take it 2 steps further. So making sure that the decisions that are made as far as the budget is concerned, making sure that we know exactly how that's going to impact our teachers, our various schools, our various communities, our students in certain groups. So that's what I hope to do.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkins. We're going to move on to question number 4, which is about collaboration. And we've touched a little on this in a couple of the other questions, but this specifically gets to skills that you think you can bring to the table. This question will go to Mr. Sturgis first. And it is, what skills do you possess and what steps would you take to improve collaborative and effective school board decision-making?
Yes, that's a great question. And one skill that I bring to the table is that I like to listen. I like to hear everyone's ideas. I may come into it with my opinion, but I have changed my opinion after listening to people in the past. So I think that's number one, listening. Number two is that I think having the discussions at the board meeting in public where everyone can hear us, everyone hears the discussion. We may get input from somebody that we didn't necessarily ask for, but that gives us more information. So bringing as many of the groups into the discussion as we can. I think the other thing I would say, with collaboration, as I've said, I've managed, a tennis team. I managed, 150 kids in a summer program, and you have to be confident, but also be honest, respectful, and voice your opinion based on facts and based on data. And I think collaborating starts with the willingness to listen. And I think that right now on the board, people jump to, here's my opinion, rather than let's hear what somebody else says, and then let's, see how we can figure out a middle ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. Ms. Wilkins, same question.
Thank you. It is an important, this collaboration piece, because I think that's something that the board itself can improve on. We want to get to a point where we're all voting. It's not so much of a split vote every time as more people on one side or the other. I agree with what Eric touched on about listening to our different stakeholders in different communities and making sure that those voices are heard and brought to the board table as we make those decisions. And my experience, along with my work on school PTOs, I've volunteered on various nonprofit boards for the last 10 years, so more than 10 years. So I have a lot of boardroom experience, a lot of, working with small groups, working with teams to come up with ways to solve problems together, and working with folks from all kinds of different walks of life and different backgrounds, different levels of expertise in different areas. I think another thing that the board can do well, if they're intentional about it, is trusting experts. So if there is someone on the board with more financial expertise, listening to that person and having their opinion. If there's someone who has experience with the social emotional learning aspect, let's listen to those experts. And let's also bring in other experts so that we can get those opinions and make really well-informed decisions. That's going to make everyone feel better about being there.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilkins. And finally, Ms. Knaus. Go ahead.
So the collaboration skills that I would bring to the table so that we can, make decisions together is, and what my background is in looking at the big picture, and then also the impact, not just the first impact, but those second, third, and fourth of the decisions that we are going to make, because a lot of these decisions that the board is making now can impact us 30 years from now. For for instance, like deciding whether or not to hang on to certain land or buildings, and those that we're really going to have to be thoughtful and mindful about. So I would be bringing that perspective to the board. I would also invite experts, whether it's within my own circle, ask my fellow board colleagues for their insight, or if they have any connections or experts or just community stakeholders that they think that we should be reaching out to. And then again, doing the legwork outside of those public board meetings and then sharing it with the trustees, what we've learned with each other. With if you're keeping it within the subcommittee meetings, still letting our other trustees outside of the subcommittee meetings knowing what we've learned from the experts, and then sharing that with the public within the public facing meetings or via our president or secretary, so that they can know the findings. And again, it's a little bit more transparent in terms of why we're making the decisions that we are and the impacts that they can have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Knaus. We're going to switch up and talk a little bit about school safety next. Ms. Wilkins, you will be the first one that we asked to answer this question. So what specific steps, if any, should be taken to improve school safety in the Ann Arbor School District? Do you agree with the school board's 2012 decision to eliminate police liaison officers at the high schools?
Specific steps for safety. I want to talk about, safety, we can go a number of different ways. So I guess the resource officers decision, first of all, I do agree with that decision to remove them from the high schools. I also support having Ann Arbor schools is in a great situation with the police department, where the resource officers that are present at some of the other schools, they are chosen by the school district. So it's not, we don't say, send us a couple of police officers, please. We get to hand pick those officers, those actual human beings that are going to be interacting with our kids. So I'm grateful for that special situation, that special arrangement that we've got with them. As far as I want to talk a little bit about kids feeling safe when they feel like they're included, when they feel like they are valued. And representation goes a long way for that. So students in various communities, historically underrepresented communities, can be seeing themselves reflected in curriculum, in the staff, in extracurricular activities that are going on, things like that. That's going to help those students feel safe. That's going to help with safety. I'm excited about our continued capital programs through the bond that will help with outdoor safety issues, everything from buildings and deteriorating staircases and things like that are being improved. So I think monitoring those and making sure that we're making the right decisions for that kind of thing as well.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkins. Ms. Knaus, you're next.
Thank you. So again, yes, safety at our Ann Arbor Public Schools is covers a lot of different topics, because while there's the specific to, I think, as you alluded to, to gun safety measures that we've put in place, and the ALICE training that all teachers go through, there, and all of the drills that our students take part in each year. We also have to think about the kids who have food allergies, and whether or not school can be a safe space for them. We have to think about the behavioral specialists that we just lost due to state funding that was taken away this year. And the fact that, like, currently our safety director within Ann Arbor Public Schools wears a lot of hats. So we have to think about how we can prioritize and help the district and help our superintendent and our current safety director prioritize help, making sure that we're keeping our eye on the ball, that the audits for all of our lockdown procedures are being followed, and that all of the training that we're supposed to be following, if it's in regards to gun safety, food safety, our special education families, and even, you know, as the traffic safety laws, right? As we're entering and exiting the parking lots, you know, that all of those are being followed. So it's a broad category, and it's something that really, as a board and as a community, we're going to help our district consider.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Knaus. Mr. Sturgis.
Yes, as Leslie and Megan have said a lot of great things that I agree with. I also do agree with the 2012 decision to remove the resource officers, public, from the high schools. What I would like to see, social workers, more social workers in the school that can help students with, you know, mental health issues, with any concerns they have, you know, with bullying, with safety. I think the capital projects are important, that we monitor those and that we continue to make sure that, you know, those are up to speed, and that what needs to be done is being done. But I also think that, you know, I've substitute taught in the district, and I think the safety is very good right now. We do need to help our safety director out for sure, but also, you know, we need to make sure that, you know, the underrepresented classes, the special education kids are feeling safe, and, you know, that's a lot, reaching out and listening to those communities about, you know, stuff they want to see. And when you're understaffed, naturally you also feel somewhat unsafe. So I think if we can get staffing back to the appropriate level in the special education, that would help a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. And you may have seen the sign that our last question is now coming up. So I'm going to shift a little bit and just go down. I'm going to go down the list to priorities. I'm going to ask each of you to name what your top 2 priorities would be if elected. And we're going to start with Ms. Knaus.
Thank you. So my top 2 priorities are getting my head wrapped around our budget, and to look at all of the different categories that there are. As we're going through them on the public pages that are available, it's difficult for any layperson to the community to look at. I did go to the board retreat and took part in or listened to their financial training, and look forward to taking the financial training that is offered to all school board members, just to help as a guide us as soon as elected, if. The next thing that I would prioritize is a strategic plan and getting the community's input first and foremost, and all of our stakeholders. So our teachers, our community members that do not have children in Ann Arbor Public Schools, and our administrators, so that we can set forth what we should be prioritizing our budget dollars towards for the next 5 years. And so setting those goals would be my first priority.
Thank you, Ms. Knaus. Mr. Sturgis, to you.
Yeah, yes. A lot of what Megan said. You know, one for me would be fiscal responsibility, and that's, you know, making sure our budget is up to date and in line, and that we are planning for the future, that we are, you know, we have, let's say a 5-year plan or goal that we would like to see. I think the number 2, would be supporting teachers, students, and the community, and that's involving all of the those actors in decisions that we make, input, and really trying to find what is important to those stakeholders, and then figuring out ways where we can work through that in the budget. And I think, on that, I would also say that I think it's really important that we start trying to increase, teacher pay, and bringing, back some of the programs, getting into a fiscal spot where we can do that is something that I would like to see. And, it may mean making hard decisions, and that's something that, we're going to have to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. Ms. Wilkins.
Top 2 priorities. Number 1 is equity. I want to make sure all students, all families, and all communities are considered and consulted when policy decisions are made. Many of our students, as I said, especially those from historically excluded backgrounds, those with special needs, are not being well served in the district, and I vow to actively listen to their voices and bring their issues, needs, and suggestions to the board. And I'll also follow up to see what impact the action steps had on those students and their families. Number 2 priority is transparency. Ann Arbor Public Schools needs to prioritize rebuilding trust with the community, as we talked about, especially around the budget. I'm committed to doing this time-consuming, detailed work with honesty and compassion. I'll ask the hard questions to make sure the district is actually listening to what families are telling them. And like I said, I'll show my work so the community knows how decisions are made. And so I'm kept accountable for those decisions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilkins. Now it's time for closing statements. We will begin again with alphabetical order, like we did with the opening ones. So Ms. Knaus, it's to you first.
Well, thank you again for the time to share out more about myself. Through this process, I've always enjoyed the information that the League of Women Voters puts out, and I use it each election year. I'm sure I'll be watching some of your other panels for some of our other races that are upcoming this November. I have enjoyed serving Ann Arbor Public Schools since 2017 in my role as a parent and chairperson on our PTO and PTO council rep. I have very much enjoyed this campaign, meeting the other board members and getting to know them, and hopefully working with some of them on the board. And I've really enjoyed getting to know more of the teachers outside of the schools that my kids are at, as well as the time that the current trustees and past trustees have given us, and as well as other stakeholders in the community. So thank you again, and I hope that I have some of your votes in November.
Thank you, Ms. Knaus. Mr. Sturgis.
Yes, thank you again to the League of Women Voters for putting this on. You guys always do a phenomenal job. I just want people to see that I think my unique background of being an Ann Arbor Public Schools grad, working in the schools and in different roles, will help me be a trustee that has the experience from different sides and can see, all the sides when making decisions. I also am somebody who's been very passionate about Ann Arbor Public Schools and want to keep us the best in the state. The last thing I want to say is, I think we have some really good candidates. I think either Megan or Leslie would be phenomenal trustees. So I think the voters have great choices to make, and I'd encourage you to go to my website, ericforschoolboard.com, and reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. And finally, Ms. Wilkins.
Yes. I want to thank you again for this opportunity. I'm a big fan of Vote 411. It's my go-to resource for elections. I hope my answers today, along with the more comprehensive questionnaire we were asked to complete, convince voters to trust me to help make important decisions that impact our kids. I'm very proud of the Ann Arbor Teachers Union endorsement, which shows that they think I'll be able to have a positive influence. I'm committed to serve AAPS kids and their families by doing the hard work necessary so that all students are valued and supported in their school experience. And I'll maintain a focus of equity as I collaborate with my other board members and with our stakeholders to right-size the district's budget, prioritize our educators' needs, and restore trust in our board and administration so all our students can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkins. And thank you all again for participating in this valuable session.
The League thanks the candidates and volunteers who participated in today's forum and the community members who submitted questions. Please urge others to view our forums. And most importantly, please vote in the November 5th general election, either by absentee ballot or in person. Hello, my name is Rose Riley, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Washtenaw County. Welcome to our online candidate forum for the November 5th general election. The League is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that promotes voter education and participation, and we host candidate forums to help voters make informed choices. Now, let's hear from the candidates.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Komansky, and I will moderate the forum tonight. It's my honor to introduce 3 of the 6 nonpartisan candidates running in the November general election for the Ann Arbor Public Schools Board of Education: Ernesto Carajero, Don Wilkerson, and Glinda Wilkes. The remaining 3 candidates have already participated in a forum just before this one with identical questions, and this will give all candidates adequate time to respond. Thank you, candidates, for participating in this forum. We are now ready for your opening statement, Mr. Carajero.
Thanks everyone for joining this evening. My name is Ernesto Carajero. I've lived in Ann Arbor for over 30 years. I've served on the Ann Arbor board for the last 3.5. I'm a husband and a father of 2 AAPS kids, and I'm a career teacher. I graduated from Michigan with English, and I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with a master's degree in English. I got a 20-year career in teaching high school and post-secondary college at Washtenaw Community College. My campaign platform is pretty simple. It's really a continuation of the work that I've been doing in the last 3.5 years. Number one, try to have a student-focused, positive culture around us. And that includes everything from trying to include students more in our conversations that we have. I generally think that students should be included in our conversations about school, everywhere from the bus stop to the board table. Second priority is to make sure, as we all know, that we have more transparent financial reporting and procedures, really. And that should be equal access to both trustees and the public. I think that's very important. It will help build trust back in the community. My third priority is to have a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens for decision making. My hope is that the Ann Arbor Public Schools would hire a DEI officer to help direct some of that work. And finally, to continue that work that I've been working on, the AAPS sustainability framework, which I helped design with the team in the collaboration of the task force. That's really what my platform is all about and what I hope to continue to do if the voters hope so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carajero. Mr. Wilkerson, you're next.
Good evening, everyone. Excited to be here with you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Don Wilkerson. I'm a father of 4 in the district. My daughter just recently graduated from Skyline. I have a junior at Skyline, and I have 2 3-year-old twins who will be joining the district in a couple years from now. I bring financial expertise to the board. I lead risk advisory services at Raymond, which is a national CPA and advisory firm based here in Michigan. I help organizations understand their financial, operational, and IT processes and how to mitigate risks across those. And I graduated from the Roth School of Business with a master's in accounting and my bachelor's in business. I've been a longtime committed advocate for students in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. I've collaborated on multiple millage campaigns that have supported funding for our students. I've held various leadership roles in PTOs and the PTO Council, acting as a treasurer training expert over the years. I've been an avid volunteer and rec and ed coach, and I've also sat on the board of a nonprofit for special education advocacy. Last but not least, I am a member of the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians. I have a heartfelt commitment to underrepresented communities across the district. I've been a longtime advocate for internship programs and mentorship programs for students of color and students from underrepresented communities. And I've been a longtime organizer for the Dance for Mother Earth Powwow, sharing the Native culture here in our Ann Arbor community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. Ms. Wilkes. You're muted, Ms. Wilkes.
And I said I wasn't going to forget to do that. Good evening, everyone. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this exciting event. My name is Glenda Wilkes, and I have lived in the Ann Arbor area, in the Ann Arbor district for more than 20 years. I am a wife, a mother, former Ann Arbor public school teacher. I'm also a journalist. I worked at the Detroit Free Press for many years. And when I was teaching at Burns Park Elementary right here in Ann Arbor. I have 3 sons who successfully went through this district. They attended Northside, Clegg Middle School, and Skyline High School. I am actively involved in my community. I was involved on the PTO. I was also president of the district-wide Black Parent Student Support Group, so actively involved again in the district. I also served on the Blue Ribbon Advisory Committee, which was a part of the district under one of our superintendents. In addition, I am civically minded. I have been involved in various entities within our community. I'm also a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I'm a graduate of Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism, and I also received my master's from University of Michigan School of Education. And I want to bring change, fiscal responsibility to this district. And I look forward to the chance to possibly doing that if elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkes. And thank you, candidates. Now we're going to move on to the questions that were sent in from the community. We'll be starting with Mr. Wilkerson for the first question, then Ms. Wilkes, and then Mr. Carajero after that for the same question. So first question is about public trust. What steps would you take with your fellow trustees to build back trust in the board's work following the recent $14 million budget deficit that caused teachers and staff to be laid off? Mr. Wilkerson.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I will say it's very evident that trust is broken in the district. We definitely need to focus on it. We need to focus on it through engagement. We need to listen to our various stakeholders, teachers, parents, students. We need to really rally around our community and try to reset the vision for the district. We haven't went through visioning as a board in a number of years. So I think setting that strategic vision for the next 3 to 5 years is an excellent opportunity to engage our community and help them, be part of the decision-making process and really making sure that we're working toward the same goal of educating our students. I think, having transparent discussions at the board level and making sure the community understands the decisions that are being made and some of the context around those decisions, how we've reached those decisions. Sometimes they're challenging decisions, right? Nobody wants to make, cuts to programming or teachers or anything to that nature, but sometimes those decisions need to be made, but they need to be made with context and open discussion. And I think stabilizing our financial footing is extremely important in this district. When we think about millage campaigns and asking voters to go to the polls and offer their funding and, continue to provide support for our schools, they need to know that they can have trust in the district that's going to manage those funds appropriately. So I think stabilizing our financial outlook will ultimately, help in that process. But I think it really comes down to engagement, making sure each of the stakeholders has a voice at the table.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. Ms. Wilkes, same question.
Okay, thank you. Well, I believe that in order to regain trust within our district among our students, teachers, and staff, we need to leverage and build relationships. Again, we need to listen. We need to know what concerns are among all stakeholders within this district. In addition, we need to display as a board civility and the ability to show leadership and governance. I believe that we can disagree without being disagreeable when we have discussions during our school board meetings. I believe that there's a level of professionalism that needs to be displayed at all times because our students are watching. Our students are sometimes at these board meetings to get credit for their government classes. And I believe that it's really important that we be the role models that they can see. In addition, we need to address the fiscal issue that's going on within our district. And as a board member, if I'm elected, I believe that fiscal responsibility would be a top priority. It should be a top priority because I believe that we're all concerned about the current deficit that we're facing. I know as a former teacher, I know what it was like to face possibly receiving a pink slip every year and having that cloud hovering over your head, knowing or not knowing if you were going to get one. And unfortunately, a lot of our teachers received a pink slip this year, but thankfully, many of those teachers were called back. So we have our work cut out for us. If we're elected to the school board, if I'm elected to the school board, I'm committed to making sure that students, teachers, staff can actually feel as though they can trust trustees on the school board like myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkes. Mr. Caraharo.
If you could just repeat the question once, that'd be great. Thanks.
Of course. What steps would you take with your fellow trustees to bring back trust in the board's work following the recent 14 million budget deficit that caused teachers and staff to be laid off?
Yeah, thank you for that. One thing I'll say is, again, to reiterate what was said by the others is that, our students are watching, our community is watching. I think in order to show that we can gain their trust back, we got to demonstrate that ourselves. And part of that is trying to collaborate with one another for the limited sort of things that we do and can work together, even when we do disagree. So what I've tried to work with every person on there, just by way of example, when she first came onto the board, Trustee Dupree really wanted to work on student work. We've worked on that together. The existing President Johnson and Trustee Gaynor, I worked with them on sustainability. When Trustee Schmidt came on the board, I worked with her on a literacy conference call. So I think that kind of collaboration, whether it's seen in the public view or not, certainly can be sensed by the public. And so another place of area where it's trust is with our employee groups. We definitely need to rebuild our trust back there. Obviously negotiations and our contracts and our bargaining have a lot to do with that, which is not yet resolved. And so when we make commitments to our employee groups, we have to fulfill them. And that's part of the trust too, because when the teachers' morale goes down, that's when the community trust is somewhat lost because that experience isn't quite as enriching as it can be for kids. So definitely demonstrate trustees, and will also reiterate the financial transparency as well. There's just no reason why, in the same way that we have a commitment to being transparent about the bond money that we ask for the public from, we should have that same commitment to showing where the general fund money is going. And we don't have those detailed reportings existing out in the public view. Right now, they're just cut monthly and not categorized by the business objects that they're required to be. So that financial reporting and the ability to get a competent CFO, I think will speak a lot in the way of gaining trust with the community and, of course, building trust with the board members. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caraharo. The second question is about student enrollment, and Ms. Wilkes, you'll be starting this one. The district's 2023 student enrollment report shows that the number of students in Ann Arbor Public Schools has declined in each of the last 5 years. In each of those years, significantly more students transferred out of Ann Arbor Public Schools to private schools than transferred in from private schools. Does this pattern indicate a need for any changes in Ann Arbor Public Schools?
Well, thank you for that question. Well, I believe, first of all, I am strongly committed to Ann Arbor Public Schools. Again, I had 3 sons who went through this district. And the wonderful thing about a democracy is that you have choice, and parents have a choice. I believe that our public schools have the rigor. They offer amazing programs, a variety of different programs, you name it, virtual, in school, AP, IB, you name it, we have it. And some parents are going to choose to go to private, that's their prerogative. But I also believe that we have an opportunity to try to attract some of those students back, perhaps through marketing campaigns or maybe some type of PR type campaign. Because I think sometimes some parents and the students don't really know what this district offers. And I believe that we offer a top-notch, high-quality education. We have high-quality educators within our district. I believe that sometimes some parents may want maybe a smaller environment for their child, and we have different types of schools within our district that can maybe meet that child's need. For example, we have community high school, we have the STEAM school. So I believe that we have a smorgasbord of opportunities for parents to find for their children, to find the right fit for their child. And I believe that we actually have an opportunity to actually bring some of those students back into our district. I mean, they're right here within Ann Arbor. So it's an opportunity that I think that we definitely shouldn't miss. And I know that some parents are also deciding to homeschool their children. And I think that was because of the pandemic. And that's another opportunity to bring more students within our district. So I think we have some options. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkes. Mr. Carrero.
Yeah, generally, I think the questions around enrollment and what Ann Arbor Public Schools can do around boosting enrollment and why are we losing them potentially to other places. There's so many moving parts to that question. The first part of that being us to investigate a little more deeply and a little more astutely why students are leaving our district and why families are choosing that. We currently don't have a standing exit survey that has any real data collection value to it other than some open-ended questions. I know that's something that the district's been working on to try to discover why those students are leaving and what are the decisions they're making about moving their kids either to a different district or to a private school or a charter school or something like that. And for us to know that, we'd have to gain some information around it and do some data collection around that. And we just haven't done that in a sort of systemic, robust, longitudinal kind of way. Secondly, I would say just around enrollment in general, I think that it's a much bigger picture than about what Ann Arbor Public Schools is doing or not doing. I think that it has to do with affordable housing. It has to do with the community that we live in. It also has to do with the projections that we make around how many people will live here with families. And young people with families can't necessarily afford to live in our community in a way that's suitable to their livelihood. So I think there's other factors outside of schools why we might be losing students. And again, that's a supposition more than anything else. We have, by data, as you said, have lost 1,000 students per year. I think that has to do with a lot with the cost of living, certainly has a lot to do with the pandemic as well. But we can get back those students. That is a cost of $11 million in lost funding for us. And it's not as easy to recover from an $11 million cut in our spending. In a way that's not going to affect families the way that they have. So I'll just leave it that enrollment is a problem that's much bigger than us. We offer everything that a student could want.
Thank you, Mr. Carrero. Mr. Wilkerson.
Right, thanks. Well, we need to engage our community. We have lost, close to 1,100 students. We need to rebuild trust first and foremost. If we look at how our teachers were treated in the last year, we lost some really good teachers, some very young teachers that were providing excellent services to our students, engaging our students. We lost some teachers to in-district transfers, so they had to switch schools. So it's about retention and attraction of our teachers. But again, it kind of comes back to that trust statement. We do need to do a better job of understanding why families have left. We need to engage with that data in any way we can. Surveys, trying to engage with some of those that have left to try to pick up the pieces and see if we can gain context. But I think as a district, we really need to focus on growth to attract students. If we focus on cutting, we know it's a downward spiral. If we cut programming, we cut offerings, it's going to continue to push students out the door. It's going to continue the financial crisis that we currently have. So we really need to shift that mindset, and it needs to start at the top. It needs to start at the board. It needs to start with the administration, and we really need to think about engaging and growth. So engaging programming, a great example is, many years ago, I was the PTO president at STEAM, and our community, was very small. It was North Side. We had about 250 students, and the community continued to be dwindling. We had families going elsewhere within the district, and it was part of the superintendent's listen and learn tour that we started advocating for a change for our community, something more engaging. And that's where the idea of STEAM came to be. It was a complete night and day difference for our students. My kids came home completely engaged with the curriculum. They'd always loved their teachers, but now they love going to school. And we need to think about that for others in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. The next subject is fiscal expertise, excuse me. So this is Mr. Carharo, you're first. The district has a $300 million annual operating budget and $90 million annual capital budget. What experience or education prepares you to oversee public finances of this magnitude?
Yeah, sure. The budget is one of the two major focuses of the board is really the superintendent and the budget. And obviously the budget has had some problems the past few years. I served as the treasurer I first served on the finance committee the first year, and then the second year I served as treasurer with Trustee Lazarus. And then the following 2 years, when the board turned, I decided to move elsewhere to explore other parts of board service. But in terms of the $300 million, 80% of it is for our employees, 90% of it is for employees and benefits, which leaves the last 10% of the budget somewhere that's somewhere around $30 million, even a little bit left, with some room for the general fund to have expenditures. And that doesn't include textbooks and sort of all of those other things. So we try to protect the money that's inside of the general fund. We always ask those questions at the board: where does this money come from? And usually it's coming from the sinking fund, or it's coming from the bond fund where we're doing improvements. So the liquidity within the general fund is very, very small because of our contractual obligations, both to our vendors and to our 6 employee groups that we have. So in terms of being able to manage it and know that, it's actually a very, very small number with which the district has to work. And in the previous administration, we always did know that giving the teachers and our employee groups a 2% raise would result in a $12 million potential loss somewhere else. And we did try, I know our previous superintendent was having an approach of trying to do that slowly. But in terms of experience in doing that, obviously you need an experienced CFO to be able to give you the information. And that's not something that we have right now. So our district is really in need of that. We've been searching for it for months now, but we're just looking for the right person with the Michigan experience that will be able to help us with that. So really, that's what we're waiting for, to get those professional analyses of that budget to the board so they can make good decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Caraharo. Mr. Wilkerson, same question.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, financial expertise is what I do from a professional perspective. As I mentioned, I lead risk advisory services at Raymond, which is a national CPA and advisory firm. I graduated from the Ross School of Business with my master's in accounting and my bachelor's in business. I work with organizations of all different sizes across industries. I work with Fortune 500 organizations. I work with nonprofit organizations, state and city, organizations and companies. And I think, personally, I understand the challenges of accounting. I understand the challenges of budgeting. But I think as a district, we need to take a more proactive approach to our budgeting process. We need to, many of the factors and figures that we set or the assumptions that we make in the budgeting process aren't really confirmed until the October or November timeframe when per pupil funding is released. And there's other actions that or other factors that kind of get clarified as the school year goes on. So we need to take a very active, proactive approach to kind of resetting the budget on a very standardized cadence. Lots of organizations do it on a quarterly basis. For the school district, it kind of seems like, every 3 to 6 months would be more appropriate, three times a year or whatever it might be. But we need to challenge our assumptions. And from the board's perspective, we do need a CFO in the district, but we also need to be ready to ask challenging questions about the budget that's presented. So again, when we think about the budget and what is presented to the board, what is presented to the superintendent, we need to think about the current landscape of the operating environment, right? Just in this last fiscal year, right, we had lost 1,100 students. We had provided teachers with raises, which was amazing. But we didn't ask challenging questions of why our expenses weren't going up, and really some of that should be pretty simple to look at from a board perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. Ms. Wilkes.
Thank you. So that's a perfect segue into what I have to offer. So again, I graduated from the Medill School of Journalism with a bachelor's in arts, and asking crucial questions is what I do for a living. And I believe that one of the reasons why we're sort of in this fiscal quandary right now is because the right questions and the challenging questions were not asked. I intend to dig deep, intend to ask question after question after question until we get down to the bottom line as to what's actually going on with our budget. We shouldn't have to say, oh, there was an error on this part or an error on that part. I believe that if we ask the right questions, we're bound to get to the right answers. So again, I want to be a problem solver. And I think in addition to having someone with financial expertise, we also need someone who has the ability to ask crucial questions. And in addition, I know that the Michigan Association of School Boards offers school board trustees training in finances when it comes to school boards. And when it comes to school finances, you can take care of your finances with your families and you can take care of finances with your business, but apparently finances pertaining to school districts, it's a very different animal. So I intend to take part in every training that's available. I know that current board trustees have had access to such training. I'm not privy as to whether or not all current trustees took advantage of that training, but I know that I intend to do whatever is necessary in order to know the ins and outs of our school budget, so that we can do the best possible job for our students, for our teachers, and for our staff. It's when it comes to the bottom line, it's our job. The buck stops with the school board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkes. Our next question has to do with collaboration. And Mr. Wilkerson, you will be first for this one. What skills do you possess and what steps would you take to improve collaborative and effective school board decision-making?
Well, collaboration is key. It's consensus building. It's built into governing. Part of governing is compromise and working together. I don't want to see the board vote 7-0 on everything, but I want to see them come together and have a collective voice, a great discussion, and really understand where each person's coming from on the board. I work hard as a leader when I'm in the boardroom to really understand the people that are across the table from me, the people that are in the room, understand their perspectives, build rapport with each member, each person that I'm kind of dealing with. It goes a lot beyond just the decisions that we're making at the table, but understanding them as people. What's important to them? Why do they want to volunteer for these positions? What's going on in their family life? It really helps build a perspective where you can put yourself in their shoes and understand where they're coming from. And I think a big part of collaboration is engagement. So again, making sure that each stakeholder in our community, whether it's teachers, administration, students, families, taxpayers, have a voice at the table and are able to bring a perspective, and the board hears it. The board really needs to acknowledge those different perspectives and make sure that we continue to advocate that each person has a seat at the table and is being heard. But again, I think collaboration is key. I think the current board has struggled with collaboration, and I think we need to come together. We need to rally around a focus on students. And as there may be disagreements, when we peel back the layers of the onion, and we understand that students and their success is a critical core that we're all advocating for, there's commonality immediately right off the bat, and we can grow from there.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. Ms. Wilkes.
Okay, thank you. So working collaboratively is crucial. It's so important. And I intend to work collaboratively with my fellow board members and the superintendent. We can't leave the superintendent out of the equation. The superintendent plays a critical role in all that's going on with what the board does. And again, working collaboratively with fellow board members in order to make sure that we can get the job done. We, again, may disagree, but we can disagree without being disagreeable. We can disagree and still negotiate. We can disagree and still go out for a cup of coffee and maybe discuss further what differences we may have on a certain issue. I believe that collaboration is the key to making sure that this board stays together. Again, we don't have to agree on everything, but we also must know that we all have a common goal, and that common goal is the best for our students, the best for our teachers, and the best for our staff. And when Ann Arbor Public Schools are succeeding, the district is doing well, then the community is doing well, because strong, healthy schools makes for a strong, healthy community. And I am more than willing to collaborate with my fellow board members. I believe that we can all reach some sort of common ground in terms of leveraging relationships with other local lawmakers and possibly state lawmakers. I believe that they could play a part in this collaborative effort in order to get what this district needs in terms of possible creative ways in terms of funding, so that Ann Arbor is getting its fair share in all areas when it comes to funding. So collaboration is a great thing, and I believe that as a school board member, I would definitely advocate for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkes. And Mr. Caraharo.
If you could repeat the question, please.
Of course. What skills do you possess, and what steps would you take to improve collaborative and effective school board decision-making?
Sure. So I'll start with the skills part first. I already mentioned earlier that I have collaborated with many of my previous board members, some who are still serving with me, and those who served in the previous term. I give just a couple examples. Well, for President Johnson, Trustee Gaynor, we worked on sustainability. Trustee Lazarus, we worked on finance together. Even Trustee Jessica, even just name escapes. Even her, we worked on planning together, and we came up with putting forward the code of conduct policies together. So I've worked with other trustees before and collaborated to show that we could get things done. So that's all I'm always really looking for with others. And of course, it's nice to get to know folks and go and have coffee with them. And of course, we can all agree to disagree. But to me, the collaboration that we really need is the collaboration with the community. That's the part that I felt has always been somewhat missing, certainly with the superintendent as well. It's one of the reasons why I've tried to continue to boost or to advocate that the community engagement meetings with our affinity groups resume with our superintendent. So that's the kind of collaboration I'm looking for, both amongst my trustees and across the community. And in terms of the first half of that question on my skills, it might not appear that in the public, that I'm collaborating with others, but really it's all about passion. That's really what it is. And sometimes that often gets misinterpreted as something like being aggressive or being hard to work with or whatever stereotype you want to put on it. But to me, it's really about demanding the best for our kids. That's what this really is all about. And if we had students at the table a little more often, we would hear from them some of the issues that they face on a daily basis, and we'd be able to collaborate even with them to be able to move our district in the right direction. We're obviously in the middle of what I'll call a culture change. We have a new superintendent on board, and it's going to take all of our collaboration together to get the changes done that are best for the kids.
Thank you, Mr. Caraharo. The next question is about school safety, and Ms. Wilkes, you will be first up on this. What specific steps, if any, should be taken to improve school safety in the Ann Arbor district? Do you agree with the school board's 2012 decision to eliminate police liaison officers at the high schools?
Okay. Well, I agree with the decision to get rid of the police liaisons. I know that we currently have what they call restorative justice, and I believe that this is definitely an improvement. I know that, as we all know, certain students have been targeted more for suspension and for expulsions, particularly students of color. And I believe that restorative justice is an effort to provide a more equitable approach to how school, quote unquote, discipline is handled. I know that restorative justice is fairly new within our district, but from what I understand, it's been quite effective. I do believe that we need to take some things maybe one step further. I know that we all know about Oxford and what happened at Oxford, and I believe that was a wake-up call, not just for our district, but for districts across the country. And as board members, assuming I get elected, we need to examine this. I mean, this is a real concern among parents. I'm sure it's a concern among students and staff. As a former parent of 3 students who went through the district, it was a concern of mine. But I believe that having police officers in the building isn't necessarily going to resolve an issue. I believe that restorative justice is a great step forward, but we need to take it one step further by examining what more can we possibly do to make sure that all of our students and all of our staff and everyone in our buildings are safe on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkes. Mr. Caraharo?
Yeah, I absolutely do not want police officers in schools throughout the school day under any circumstances. I think that is the right decision. I think schools are for learning and for environments, and having police officers in school speaks to what our school culture would and would not be willing to accept. So for me, I know that there are many. I won't say many, but there are certainly a large number of families in our district who do not have good relationships with the police, and their experiences haven't been positive. So to include those same stigmatism around them or that triggering effect while students are supposed to be learning, that's not something I would support at all. I think also that when we have police in the schools, it speaks to the punitive nature around discipline. And we heard Ms. Wilkes talked a little bit about restorative justice. Of course, that's something that we would support. We do not want to have any easy transition to the school to prison pipeline. And I think having police in schools doesn't solve that. It actually creates a more heightened, intense environment where a student would not be able to willing to learn. Now, there are ways that police can be involved in schools. I think Safety Town is a great example of how police can get involved. I think when we have big games where there's lots of we have public events, certainly we expect the police to be engaged with us to secure our students in those instances. But when it's about learning in the classroom and between the bells, I under no circumstances want police in our schools.
Thank you, Mr. Caraharo. Mr. Wilkerson.
Yeah, thank you. I think school safety is of utmost importance for our district, for our students and our families, our community. I think any good governance process really starts with reviewing and understanding our policies. We need to make sure that our policies are meeting the demands of our students and based on sound practices. And then I think we need to understand if our current policies are being adhered to in the district. Are we following our own policies that we've defined? And then on an ongoing basis, we need to monitor our policies to ensure that we're using leading practices for school safety. You know, there's always going to be kind of this iterative process where we learn more about how to react or how to respond better, and we need to make sure that gets incorporated back in our policies. I think we do need to do a better job of funding safety in our district. There's currently one person that's assigned and responsible for all of transportation and school safety. And that's a huge bottleneck when we're trying to take a proactive approach and making sure that school safety is a top priority for our students. From a policing standpoint, I do 100% agree with the decision to remove police from our schools. The data shows that these officers are a detriment to our students, especially to students of color. And you know, what we need to be doing is continuing to use restorative justice, keeping our students in the classroom, but you know, using things like the tip line that we've recently implemented to make sure students have a safe and comfortable way to respond to events. I think it's called See Something, Say Something. We want to make sure our students understand that and have the opportunity to engage, so we can be proactive in addressing students and providing them with the supports that they need in challenging times. And then I also think studies have shown there's no benefit in the reaction time from police coming from your local community or those that are in the schools. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. This will be our last question, and Mr. Caraharo, you will be beginning. What are your top 2 priorities if elected?
Yeah, you know, my top 2 priorities are one, to put students first, positive student culture, and get them more involved in our district. I've gone several meetings, sometimes over the course of a month or maybe even two months, which is 3 or 4 meetings, where we didn't hear the name of a student, we didn't see a student present, and we didn't celebrate students in an in-person kind of way. So my first priority would be to put students at the forefront. And I think that will do a lot for some of the other topics we discussed about building trust and collaborating together. When they're the focus and not some of the other things, I think it becomes a lot easier for us to come together as a community. The second thing of priority is obviously more transparency around financial reporting. I think that includes for the trustees and the public to have equal access to that kind of information. We are legally required to report that to the state using their specific business object coding system. I just don't see why those codes can't be, our expenses can't be assigned those same codes in the say that we see it. I don't think there's anything to hide. I think we just need to have that reporting come in a way that's more understandable to the public, understandable to the board, and that is so as I said it before, that is as clear as the funding that comes through the bond fund should be just as clear as the expenses report for the general fund. So that transparency is definitely a priority of mine moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caraharo. Mr. Wilkerson.
Yeah, thank you. As far as my priorities on the board, you know, I think it's really stabilizing the district's finances, refocusing on students while setting a long-term vision, and rebuilding trust and transparency. And those last two are really, really critically intertwined. So I think stabilizing our finances is critical, as it's going to drive our ability to accomplish anything within the district, whether it's supporting the students' needs, meeting them where they are, attracting teachers and retaining strong educators with competitive wages, or trying to bring innovative programming to the table. I think far too often the board hasn't focused on all students, nor has the board recently gone through that strategic planning to set that 3 to 5 year vision. So I really want to focus in on that. I'll work to ensure that every decision is made with all students in mind, and I'll push for strategic thinking and long-term planning that really engages the community. Again, we talked about this at the onset, trust is broken, and I'll focus on engaging and listening to each of the stakeholders in our community. I'll work to rebuild that trust through listening, engagement, and transparent decision-making, focused again on students, all students. And I think it's important that the community understands, again, the decisions or the reasons for the decisions that we make. So, collectively, I think we need trust. We need to focus on students, and we really need to stabilize our budget to be successful as a district.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. Ms. Wilkes.
Would you please repeat the question
Of
just for
course.
clarification? Thank you.
What are your top 2 priorities if elected?
Okay, so my top 2 priorities. My first priority is ensuring the sound fiscal oversight and responsibility within our district. I know that we are currently facing a $25 million deficit, and there's a lot of uncertainty. Some people feel there's some uncertainty, and that's where the lack of trust comes in. So I believe that finances is a top priority. Second priority is supporting the delivery of a high quality, equitable education for all students. And again, that sort of intertwines with trust. There's been a breach of trust, I believe, from the board down to the board has lost a lot of trust among students, staff, and teachers with everything that's been going on, from ceasefire resolutions to firing a superintendent in the middle of a crisis. I believe that we need to stabilize what's happening on our board right now. And I also forgot to mention that I've served on I currently serve on Foundation Preschool's board. I serve as secretary. And so we need some sound leadership on our board. We need some governance. We need people who know how to govern accordingly to get the job done. We need folks on the school board who can govern in a civilized manner and collaborate, again, by getting things done and not necessarily just bickering and having disagreements. I believe that that's necessary right now. I believe that when there's a sense of calm among board members, it sort of has an impact on our community, puts our community at ease, it puts our district at ease. And I just know that I really want to bring that to our district. I want to bring that to our school board. We are facing some challenges right now, but they're not insurmountable. And so my goal is to definitely problem solve so that we can keep our district intact. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkes. We are now going into closing statements. Remember, it's 90 seconds, up to 90 seconds for you. And we're going back to by alphabetical order. So we will begin with Mr. Carajero. You're muted. Thank you.
There you go. Sorry about that. Just want to thank everybody for listening and tuning in. I know a lot of this is recorded, so not everyone can listen at their own time. I just want to reiterate the 2 other priorities that I didn't get to talk about, which is equitable decision making. Hopefully through the hiring with the cooperation of fellow board members of a DEI officer to implement that in a professional kind of way rather than in the silos that it tends to happen now, and also a commitment to our AAPS sustainability framework. Which is a commitment that we have that I think is the right commitment to address the climate crisis that we have. Also want to add, as we exit, during my service, I actually earned a certified board member award from the MASB for completing the first series of classes. During this campaign, I've received the endorsements of the Ann Arbor Education Association, that's the teachers, and also the Michigan College Democrats. Also, I have the endorsement of Dr. Pamela Pugh, who's the president of the Michigan State Board of Education, Jimmy Wilson Jr., the state representative for the 32nd District, Yusuf Rabi, the Washtenaw County Commissioner, Alicia Dyer, the Democratic nominee for Washtenaw County Sheriff, and two sitting trustees, Trustee Mohammed and Trustee Dupree. I have experience in this, and that's something that not everyone else, no other candidate can say. I'm a career educator. I've been teaching for 20 years. I have an endorsement by the MEA as well. So I am equipped for this job. I look forward to being able to do it for the community a little bit longer. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Carajero. Mr. Wilkerson.
Thank you. We need board members that are working for all students and their success. Board members that will stabilize our financial outlook, that will set a strong strategic vision for the district that represents the voices across the community, and board members that will bring back respect, dignity, and trust to the community. I have the endorsement of the Washtenaw Democratic Party, Better Boards, Better Schools, Focus on Education, Ann Arbor, and I believe my expertise will improve board oversight and governance. I bring financial expertise in the perspective of a parent, a father, and a Native American to the board. I've been a longtime advocate for students in our district. I've run millage campaigns. I've sat in leadership positions on the PTOs, PTO Council. I've sat on nonprofit boards for special education advocacy. I've helped navigate the transition of Northside to A2 STEAM. I've sat on the principal selection committee, and I've always been an avid classroom volunteer, tutor, and coach, whether it was Science Olympiad, Rec and Ed coaching, mentoring our students and working with students that had challenged with mathematics or reading. My promise to this community is that I'll be an effective, informed advocate for all students, and I'll do anything I can to empower them to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. Ms. Wilkes.
Thank you. So I've been in the Ann Arbor Public School District and community for more than 20 years. AAPS is close to my heart. Again, I have 3 sons who went through the district successfully. And I believe that this district is moving forward, but we want to continue keeping this district moving forward. I'm a former Ann Arbor Public School teacher. I taught at Burns Park. I believe I bring a fresh perspective. As a journalist, I believe I bring a perspective that will critique everything that's being done and being said, digging deep, investigating to get down to the answers and to ask the right questions. I also believe that this district is on the cusp of greatness. I know that we have opportunities in terms of gaining more students. I know earlier you mentioned that we have students who are enrolled in private schools. I believe that's an opportunity. I love challenges and I'm up to the challenge. And I believe that we need to embrace within this district is so wonderful because we have so many differences. And we need to embrace our cultural differences because there's so much that we can learn from one another. Each student, teacher, staff, and parent helps make AAPS a special place to grow and thrive. And I believe that together we're stronger. Together we're stronger. So thank you very much. I just wanted to also mention that I've been endorsed by the Washtenaw County Democratic Party, Better Boards, Better Schools, and FOE A2. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkes. And thank you all again for participating in this valuable session.
The League thanks the candidates and volunteers who participated in today's forum and the community members who submitted questions. Please urge others to view our forums. And most importantly, please vote in the November 5th general election, either by absentee ballot or in person.